So this is my video in a multi-part series about building a home from the ground up. Obviously building a home from raw earth is a little different than a remodel or an addition. There's a lot that goes into it before you can even do what we're doing right now, which is laying out the house. The soil that we're working on has been over excavated down 3 feet and recompacted in 12-inch lifts to make our soil nice and compact, 90% compact, so that we can dig our footings and the house won't settle. This is particularly important on this home because this is a monolithic slab, and the slab itself is going to end up being the finished floor. So we're going to have polished concrete floors in this house. This is Palm Springs. It's a mid-century modern one-story ranch with an atrium. So it's got a complicated layout. And in order to achieve this layout, we thought a monolithic slab was going to be the easiest way to do it, and it's how most homes are done out here. The foundation itself, where the footings are 12 inches wide by 24 inches deep, that go around the exterior of the entire building, and then inside and under some of our interior partition walls. The house itself will be framed in 2x6, so we will have nice thick walls to accomplish our Title 24, which is going to require us to put R30 insulation in the walls, which is not usually typical, but out here in Palm Springs it's what they require because of the heat. So right now we got our batter boards up. We've pulled our we've pulled a couple of 90 degrees. We're paying really close attention to our setbacks, and a lot of people don't talk about setbacks in these videos, but when you're building a home, your setbacks really determine the size of the home you want to build and where that house is going to lay out. Every property has a certain amount of setbacks if you're building obviously on a residential lot, and if you're building out in the woods somewhere, or some off the grid, way out in no man's land type of structure, you don't really have to worry about setbacks, but you may have to worry about zoning but not setbacks. Here in the city we have a lot of setbacks and there's a lot of rules. So if we were to pull all these strings and then find out that we were inside of the setback, and especially if we dug out the footings, we would have to fill the footings, recompact, and start again, which is a super waste of time. So you got to take a lot of time checking your setbacks and then laying out your house and making sure everything's square. We use the Pythagorean theorem to get our square parts of the home. We usually do it the long way, the full distance, and then we'll go back and just do a 6, 8, 10 to double check from the corners to make sure that our math isn't wrong. You can use a transit. You could use there's lots of different ways you can find that 90 degrees, but we use the Pythagorean theorem. This home obviously has a lot more walls than some of the homes I've seen on YouTube, where it's just a square. They're building a slab, maybe a garage, or a square home. This home has a lot of ins and outs. It's got an atrium in the middle, so it kind of cuts in, and the foundation kind of hits it strange. But this is a little more complicated home to build. But stick around and you'll be able to see exactly what we're going to do here. This is just an example of a batter board corner that we have. So we have 2 intersecting string lines. Pretty simple, standard stuff. Doesn't matter how pro you think you are, you always end up back at the old Home Depot, grabbing stuff like hats and steaks. I don't particularly have a favorite stake to use. Some guys like the square stakes, some guys like the flat stakes. Sometimes you just use what you got. Use a lot of wood stakes. Here it's kind of sandy. You can hammer the stakes down pretty good in the corner. So I was using 4-foot basically stakes to stake off the batter boards. And then the interior partition walls, I was just using the flat steel stakes to lay those out, because I really didn't feel like I wanted to make batter boards for every single corner, because I'm going to be digging it out. And that's kind of the most important thing, is you have to pull the strings off and put them back as you're digging around something like this that's so intricate. And if you hand this off to some guy in an excavator, chances are he's going to dig something that's not supposed to be dug, and you're going to end up being angry. So we marked the line basically right under the little bit, maybe it's like 2 or 3 inches off the edge of the string. And you see I put an X there. That just means I have to dig on that side. I will dig with probably a 15-inch bucket instead of a 12. It's okay if you go bigger. Obviously, you can't go smaller. But 15-inch bucket is what's available locally there. And that's kind of just the excavator I'm going to use. So as I drive that around and dig out all the different parts of the footing, I'll have to pull the strings off of the batter boards and off of my stakes here and there to drive and get the excavator in and out, which is kind of it's tedious, but it's not really rocket science. You just don't want to put in all of your string lines and batter boards and then leave it to somebody else to dig. It just ends up being a nightmare. I've been there before. I do like to, when I'm done laying out all of my string line, because sometimes you have a number of screws, or you have some duplex nails or whatever you're using to wrap your string line around, you end up with a bunch of things on your batter boards and stuff, and you've moved around so many times you don't know what's what. I like to mark the placement, the final placement, with something like a red crayon or Sharpie or whatever you need, so that when you come back to dig and you're pulling it off and on, it goes back. It's a simple little thing, but it's something good to remember when you're when you're done to do that, because I've honestly done it before where I've started digging, I pulled a string line off and didn't know which one to go back to, so then I've had to go back through and measure the corner, and it's just a pain in the butt. But that's basically how we lay out this type of foundation. This one is definitely more complicated, and you'll see as we're building the house how this kind of lays out. There's a few extra steps we have to do, because the floor is the foundation is the floor, and I have to kind of preserve that. We also have all these sliders going in around in glass, and I want the sliders to sit flush with the cement, so there's not a threshold to step over. And there's a certain way that we do it in order to make that transition. And since I don't have flooring going up to the slider, I really have to be careful, because if I blow out some of the flooring, it's never going to look the same, because that's what it is. That's what it's going to be. So that's it. Pretty much wrapped up. There's the whole entire layout of the home. There's the red line I was talking about. There it is, our lot with the lines on it. Ready to be dug. Digging it.